Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please join me in recitation of Kitab Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. We begin in the name of Allah, Allah the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise and thanks and gratitude belongs to Allah alone, Lord and sustainer and cherisher of all the worlds. Allah the most gracious, the most merciful, Master and Lord of the Day of Judgment. You, O Allah, alone do we worship and adore, and your help and your assistance and your succor do we seek. Guide us, O Allah, onto the straight way, the way of those upon whom you have bestowed your blessings and your grace, not the way of those with whom you are displeased, nor the way of those who have gone astray. Amen. O Allah, accept our prayer. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On behalf of the Darul Ilm Institute, I'd like to welcome you all to this class that we've titled How to Perform Salah with Khushu. Allow me to begin by acknowledging and paying tribute to all of those who have founded and established the Darul Ilm in 1961, I believe, over 60 years. All of the teachers, all of the students, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them sadaqah jariyah, the ajr and thawab of having built this place, and that we are able to continue to try to learn more about Allah's deen and to put into practice Allah's deen. So this is a wonderful example also of what we are standing on the shoulders of these great pioneers of Islam, and we should emulate their example by allowing this place to flourish, and by perhaps establishing other places like they have given us this wonderful example. Allahumma ighfir lahum warhamhum wa sakkinhum fil jannah. O Allah, pardon and forgive them, have mercy on their souls, and O Allah, grant them a very high place in Al-Jannah, inshallah. Allow me also to, before we begin with our classes, to just share some administrative issues. Our course will run for 6 weeks, and inshallah, it's too short. But I like to take things a little bit, because Salah is something that you do for your entire life. So we'll do a short segment, and then we'll see how it goes, and if there's interest, we can do a part 2 or part 3, inshallah. But let's start at a small level, inshallah. So we will go for 6 weeks, 2 weeks I believe now in May, and then 4 weeks in June. And then on the 4th of July, we'll have a little graduation where I was hoping to invite a guest speaker, which is the 7th week, which will be on the 4th of July. And then, as you know, that hopefully on the, I believe it's going to be the 8th, Friday the 8th of July, maybe Yawm al-Arafah. And the 9th and the 10th will be celebrated as Eid. So it will just before Eid al-Adha, I think we can again look ahead. So we're really looking at the end now of the month of Shawwal. Next month will be the 11th month, Dhul Qa'dah, and then we'll be in the final month of Dhul Hijjah, which is the final month in the Islamic lunar calendar. There is no course fee, as has been the practice at Darul Ilm for a while now, but we do welcome sadaqah donations. I believe the box is at the back side here. Where's the box? Is it there? Please, we ask you to be generous with your sadaqah to help for the maintenance and the upkeep of the Darul Ilm, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you in whatever small contribution you give, inshallah, and bless you in the remainder of your wealth, inshallah. We shall try to endeavor to give you some course notes from next week onwards, inshallah. But I would also strongly encourage you to take your own notes. You know, your notes that you take yourself and write, they are very precious to you. I was just looking at the back, I'm not going to say his name. A student, I ran the same course 2016 and he still got his notes there, which is really, wonderful. So I encourage you to take your own notes and put down your own questions as well. We will also be sharing with you some useful online resources. You know, we're living now in a technological age. There's so much of materials. We are competing with Sheikh Google. Difficult to compete with that guy, but there's lots of materials online. Some of them are very, very good, some not so good. But we will be alerting you to these resources online. And if you know of any good references, please do share it with the class. And if you find, find anything online. I'm also very delighted that my long-standing friend and colleague, Dr. Afiq Khan, will be joining me. So you won't be bored with listening to my voice for 1 full hour. So we'll be sharing, co-teaching this course. Dr. Afiq has done some excellent research on the topic of Salah, and we are fortunate to have him to share some of these deep insights into the topic of how to perform Salah with Khushu with us during Hygiene. And we thank you, Rafiq. Shukran jazeelan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, inshallah. So also the idea that we have with myself and Dr. Afiq is that, you know, my daughter was asking, Abi, why are you making such a difficult topic, how to perform the Salah with Khushu? Why don't you just say Salah for Dummies? So I said, well, it's both, you know, because people are at different levels, right? So I'm going to do basically what we call the Zahiri perspective, the fiqh perspective, which means, you know, what we know normally about the Salah, what we must recite, how to do it properly, and so on. So I'll do the dummy stuff, but Rafiq will do the Khushu, right? Which is in fact more important. So we have two concepts in Islam, or two words that something called Zahir, and this is Allah. Z with a dot underneath, and that's the international transliteration. Right? And then we have Batin, and this is a Ta. Right? So this means the external or exoteric, and this is the Batin or the inner dimensions. Right? There's a famous 12th century, 11th, 12th century Muslim scholar called Sheikh Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, died in the year 1111. And he always emphasized already then, back in the 12th century, he was concerned that people are making a fetish of the external part of it, Salah, but their souls, their minds and their hearts are not into the Salah. And that dimension of the Salah is very, very, very important. And that's where we trying, both for the beginners and the more advanced folks, to be mindful in your Salah. To know that when you are performing the Salah, you are in communion with Allah, isn't it? You're speaking to Allah. And that is why, if you just come from this perspective, I don't want to be critical, but imagine you are in communion and then you want to do so much of the Quran, right? So in Ramadan, but you read so fast, right? Because you want to finish. But how can you speak to Allah? I mean, I just recited to you the opening chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha. Now just imagine, you say all of this in English. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, praise be to Allah, Lord of the world, most gracious, most master of the day of judgment, you do we worship. You speak to Allah like that? Now imagine, because you're saying, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'in, Udina Surah. Without any stopping. Just translate it into English. Would you speak to anyone like that? Least your Rabb, your sustainer, your Lord. So rather you read small little portions, read it properly and slowly that is the meaning of Khushu, you see. And it's a Quranic word as we will explain to you as we go along. But I'm just giving you a little a short insight into the Zahir, the external part, which we emphasize. But Imam Ghazali was very worried already 1,000 years ago that we are making a fetish into the external part of it, but our hearts and our souls and our minds, there's no mindfulness in the Salah. And that's what we're going to try and of course it doesn't only come with our discussions in the class, you will have to practice it. When you go home, and especially in the Fajr prayers, when you're alone, you can pray slowly. It's not about quantity, not how many salahs, it's about the quality, right, with which you make your salah. So inshallah we will try to enhance, deepen that part of the salah, inshallah. There will be a little bit of overlap between myself and Dr. Rafiq, but we will come at it from different angles. So in the 1 hour that we have together, we will hopefully try to each speak about 25 minutes, not this evening. I'll just ask Dr. Rafiq to speak for a short while tonight. And then we'll leave about 10 minutes for questions, right? If there are any questions that you may have, and we hope that you will ask questions. Primarily, we will approach the Salah from the point of view of the Shafi'i school of law, the Shafi'i madhab, which is the predominant madhab, but at points we will also give you some comparisons with other schools of law, but primarily it is the Shafi'i madhab. I wish I could have given you a text. This is the text I'm going to be using, but unfortunately it's not available. It's called the Manual of Prayer and Fasting. A really excellent reference, but as I said, it's out of print. If you have a copy of this, it's really precious. You should hold on to it because the layout is so good and the quality, of the content is also very good. So I will try to, but I will have my own notes, as I said, will share to you from next week onwards, inshallah. Let me then start with our discussion, and we want to start then with the word Salah and the word Khushu'. What is the meaning? I've written on the board there the word Salah, right? Basically means prayer or supplication or invocation. So usually in the fiqh kitabs, they will always, when they start with the topic, they will speak to it linguistically. What does it mean from the language point of view? And then shar'an, or juristically, or technically. What's the meaning? The technical meaning. So let me start with the linguistic meaning. Linguistically, from the Arabic language point of view, Salah basically means a prayer, right? A supplication, invocation. There's a verse in the Quran in Surah At-Tawbah where Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala speaks about zakat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم خذ من أموالهم صدقة تطهرهم بها وتصلي عليهم Inna salataka sakanun lahum. Take, from the word akhara, khud, from their wealth, min amwalihim sadaqatan, a sadaqah, which means, the scholars of tafsir say this is the obligatory nature of zakat. Right? But then it says, khud min amwalihim sadaqatan, to the Prophet ﷺ, wasalli alayhim, and pray for them. Inna salataka, for your salat. But it doesn't mean the ritual prayers. It now means the prayer that you, O Prophet, the dua that you make to them, sakan lahum. It will be a source of sakan, of tranquility, of comfort for them. So in that particular verse, the word salah means a dua. Right? So there are three forms of, that we can say, pray, if you will, in Islam. So we have salah, then we have dua, is also prayer, right? Dua. And then we have something called dhikr, remembrance of Allah. When you say subhanallah, and also prayer. So there are three different forms. So the English language, in fact, doesn't really capture the nuances between these three. I mean, you can say dhikr is, if you want to explain, and you say to someone, remembrance of Allah, it's difficult. But if you say it's a prayer where you say the names of Allah, then he understands that it's specific. And then dua, right, is prayer. But salah is also prayer. So that's this linguistic meaning of the word salah. It's a sword, right? Just, you know that we have the difference between the sea and the sword, right? So it says salami. It's salah, right? That's why I put a dot. When you write it like that, you put a dot, it equals swa. And the ordinary S is s. And the sh will be sh. Right? So it's salah, and it ends with a ta marbuta. There are two tas in Arabic. This is called the ta marbuta, or the feminine ta, and ta maftuha, which is the open ta, which is the normal ta that we know. Right? Now this ta, when it comes at the end of a word, what happens to that ta? It becomes a ha. Right? You see? But this ta, if it comes at the end of a sentence, it remains a ta. You see the difference between the ta marbuta, the feminine, and the masculine ta? This remains a ta. So that is why sometimes people will say salat. They can't say like that because it is a t, but it's more correct, right? If you make a waqaf, if you stop to say salah, and this ta becomes a. Do you see that? Some people say salah, some people say salat, or some people say zakah. The same thing. Zakah also has that feminine ta. So if you see that difference, you must say, oh, there's a, it's that ta that's there. The plural of salah is salawat. Right? Usually we think about salawat as being praises upon the Prophet ﷺ, which also is one of the meanings of salah. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna. Right? But in that sense, it doesn't mean the ritual prayer. Right? It means salutations, peace, and blessings. You see the rich meaning of the word salah. Right? I'm speaking about it from the point of view linguistically. Now, if we come to speak about salah, technically, shar'an, from the point of the sharia, then we speak about, maybe, if I want to translate it, I will say ritual canonical prayer. Right? Just to make it different from prayer. Ritual prayers, right? Canonical prayers. Right? It begins with an intention. The niyyah is very important. Right? Why? And that's why you'll see the niyyah is one of the key rukuns of salah. In everything in Islam. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. All your actions are by your intention. And the intention is not merely what you say, it's what's deep in your heart. The khushu again. You may be able to say, وَيْتُ أُصَلِّي فَرْضَ الصَّلَاةِ الْعِشَاءِ لِلَّهِ تَعَالَى. You can say that with you. But is that really your intention deep in your heart? Or is it just a cultural thing? Or is it, you just feel that your parents are doing this, or it's been. But if you really want to do it as a nourishment for your soul, right, then the niyyah is very, very important. Deep. Question yourself, why am I making this salah? Right? Am I really making it, to give sustenance to my soul? In the same way that we have a physical body, right? The physical body. To keep our body alive, we need to eat nourishing foods. You don't eat, you die, right? In the same way, we have a ruh, right? We not only have a body, inside of the body, as Muslims, we believe we have, actually, from the Quran, وَنَفَخَ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِهِ. We have something of the breath of Allah inside of us. That's the ruh. That's why we say when we die, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. What? It is that breath of Allah that is, we have been endowed with, that is returns. And when the breath, when the ruh is separated from the body, then this is the death process. Then this body becomes, Mina khalaqnakum wa fi, we have created you from the earth, min turab, we go back to the earth. But the ruh is gone. Now that ruh, right, when we are a little zygote in the womb of our mothers, the hadith says an angel comes, and then the breath of Allah is inside of it. Then life is that. Now that ruh, in the same way that the body needs nutrition to be able to be healthy, and the ruh also needs this. This is the food for the ruh. The salah and the dua and the dhikr. Remember? So, the fact that we are not merely making the salah with the khushu' means we are not nourishing it. We are just doing an external thing. Right? So we must raise the level of our salah, to do it with great mindfulness, our hearts and our minds and our souls, so that it can nourish us. So, technically, from the Sharia point of view, it is this niyyah, it is this philosophy. This is the purpose of the salah, to nourish 5 times a day. In the way that you eat also, right? You're feeding this ruh. Then it starts, this very important part of the salah. It starts with an utterance, and it ends with an utterance, not with an action. Right? So what is that utterance? Anyone? When you start the salah, say Allahu Akbar. Now, this I'm going to teach you this, very important. Raf'ul yadayn, this action, doesn't start the salah. But saying Allahu Akbar, that first Allahu Akbar is a rukun of the salah, a pillar. Right? If you don't say it properly and correctly, salah is not. And salah ends with an utterance. When you're saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Not this action, but the utterance. So I want you to distinguish the hukum, the value, what is fard in the salah and what is sunnah in the salah. What is absolutely, if you don't do that properly, the salah is not sahih. And other things which you want to do it properly, but if you maybe, through neglectfulness or forgetfulness, don't do it properly, the salah is still sahih. So the salah starts with an utterance, with takbiratul ihram, and it ends with taslim, which is the words assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And the third part of the technical meaning of the salah is it has specific rules and procedures. So that's the technical meaning. Niyyah, starting with an utterance, takbiratul ihram, ending with an utterance, taslim, assalamu alaikum, and having specified parts. Okay, these parts in Arabic, but I'll come back to them. Don't worry about. So the salah consists of utterances. These are called aqwal, or qawl means, aqwal. We can use a technical English word as well, liturgy, right? If you will. And then af'al are actions. These are symbolic postures, if you will. So the salah consists of two things. Stuff that we say, that we bacha, right? Recitations, aqwal, utterances, and actions, postures. Af'al, fi'al means an action. Plural, af'al, aqwal means. So salah consists of two things, two types of things. Utterances that we say in honor and praise of Allah, and postures, physical actions through which we also praise and honor Allah through our body language, right? Through our body language. And also what I will prove to you is that the af'al, the actions are more important than the aqwal. Listen to me. That the postures for the correctness of the salah should be given more weight than the utterances. Very important. That's where we get the salah wrong. Because we are overemphasizing the utterances. It's fine if you do that, but if you do that at the expense of the action, then the salah is. For example, I usually give this example. I'm going to give it lots of times. The action, the posture, ruku', bowing, is fard. That is why it is. If it's not done correctly, I'll speak to you about arkan and sunan. It's a rukun. But if you stand like this, your salah is not correct. You're supposed to stand with your back completely, if you can. If you put a book on your back, it shouldn't fall off. And your hands must be on your knees, and you must pause, which is known as tuma'nina. But the tasbih, what did you say there? The utterance, Subhana Rabbiyal Azim wa bihamdihi, that is sunnah. If you didn't say any one of that, the salah is correct. Of course, you don't want to just leave it out. But if you didn't pause, now you see people say, they say all of them, maybe they say 3 times, but they don't pause properly. They go like that. And salah is incorrect. The i'tidal. From the sujood, you come up. Sami'allahu liman hamida, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. Sami'allahu liman hamida, Rabbana is sunnah. I can prove it to you from the hadith. But to stand upright, right? And your back straight, and to pause is fard. Now have you seen people that just go like that? But they're concentrating on the tasbih. So I want you to do the salah like that, especially when you do nafil or sunnah prayers. Sometimes don't make the tasbih, or make it only once. But concentrate on the gracefulness of the action. Because through the action you are also praising Allah. What does it mean when you bowing? In fact, the highest point in the salah is what? Sujood. When you put this forehead on the ground, nothing can compare to that. This is from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, right? The sajda. So do the sajda properly, do it gracefully. So it's always gracefulness in action. So the postures are very important. So then this is the Sharia definition of the salah. I spoke to you about the linguistic definition, very broad. I could mean all these things, and then the technical Sharia definitions is an intention, right? Starting with an utterance and ending with an utterance, takbiratul ihram, and ending with taslim, and having these specified aqwal and af'al, these utterances and actions to be done in a correct order. Okay. Let me now move on to, and I will come back to this, the shurut of the salah. Before we can make salah, there are certain prerequisites that needs to be fulfilled. In Afrikaans hulle sê voorwaardes, right? Before you can do it, right? So there are 5 of them. I'll deal with it in greater depth next week. 2 have to do with purity. Tahara, 2 keer tahara. Then Qibla, you have to pray in the direction of the Qibla. It's one of the prerequisites of the Salah. When you start the Salah, you must look where is the Qibla. It's a voorwaarde, it's a shart. And then covering the awra, you must be correctly covered, right? And then knowledge of the times of the Salah. You can't pray Fajr now. You have specified in the Salata, كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا. Allah has prescribed the Salah at specified times. Alright? So we'll also speak about this. So before you can make Fajr, the time must be in. It's a voorwaarde. It's a prerequisite. And then, so these are the 5 prerequisites that I will deal with in greater depth next week. What I just want to do tonight is to speak briefly about the hygiene or tahara, or cleanliness. There are 2 as a 2. The first tahara, purity, ceremonial purity. You cannot pray, make salah, unless you are pure from what is known as hadath al-akbar, a major state of ceremonial impurity, or hadath al-asghar, which means a minor state of ceremonial impurity. Right? So to liberate yourself, make yourself pure to make salah. If you are in a state of hadath akbar, then you must make a ghusl, a full ablution. So for example, if you've menstruated for a woman, or you have ihtilam, with dream for man, then you have to first, you're in a state of hadath akbar, ceremonial impurity, you might make a ghusl, a full ablution, before you are ready for the salah. So you have to fulfill that requirement. The hadath asghar, smaller ceremonial impurity, is to liberate yourself to make the salah. You have to have the minor ablution, which is called the wudu. Right? So this one here, hadath, right? So I'm writing all over the board. Let me just run this off. Right, so hadath, right, and this is a right? Akbar is the superlative of kabir, big, and asghar is the superlative of saghir, small. Right? This is major, this is minor, small. Right? So in order, if you are in a state of hadath akbar, ceremonial impurity, in order to qualify for salah, what do you need? Ghusl, right? Ghusl, which means a major ablution, full bath. But if you are in a state of hadath asghar, minor state of ceremonial impurity, you need wudu, right? You need the wudu in order to be ready to perform the salah. Now this is from Surah Al-Ma'idah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly establishes, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O believers, إِذَا قُمْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ, when you stand up, when you rise up for the salah, فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ, right? Which is speaking to you about, washing your faces and so on, about the wudu. And of course there is the other ayah which we'll deal with next week, which speaks to you about, وَإِن جُنُبًا فَطَّهَرُوا, when you're in a state of junub and so on, then you have to purify yourself. But at this time, in this first our lesson, I just want you to understand that. The last thing I want to speak to you about this evening, I know I'm going very fast, but I will repeat and I'll come back to this all the time. I have this bad habit of, I like numbers and I like repeating myself. But I think that's, repeating, some people get very annoyed by it, more advanced students. But I think that's a good sign of a teacher, drumming into the, indoctrinating the students into. So you will get it from me. Then, tahara min al-najasa. That means purifying yourself from najis, which means dirt that can be seen with the eye. Hadath is in a state, right? So for example, in the Shafi'i madhab, for example, right? Say you have the wudu, and we'll come back to that. But husband and wife, they touch each other accidentally. That's wudu must gebreek, né? The Shafi'i madhab. But hulle must nie failing. That's what see najis. You see, it's an internal state. Because the concept there was, and we'll come back to that with the other madhabs, differ with him, if the contact was with sexual intent. Do you see, they're not physical dirt, but you're in a state has changed. And then the wudu is broken. So, but I'm just using that as an example to show you the difference between hadath, ceremonial impurity, and najis. Najis is what you can see, dirt that you can see. But hadath is not to do, hadath is an internal ceremonial state. That's what the wudu is. Wudu is not to really just cleanse you of dirt. That is why the Prophet ﷺ says it. You should practice this. When you become very angry, then take wudu. Why? What does the wudu do? Because it cool you down. It's an inner state, right? To transform your inner state. But najis. Now, there are three things in the salah with najis. Firstly, the body must be clean from najis. Your badan or your jism. Right? The second thing is your clothes must be clean from najis. And the third thing, al-makan, the place, alladhi yusalli fi, where you're gonna, that is why you put a musalla. A musalla actually means a place of prayer. A musalla means a place where you're gonna, so the place where you're gonna pray must be clean. Right? So three things. Your body must be clean of najis, your clothes, and the place where you must be completely clean. And I want to emphasize particularly the issue of cleanliness of the clothes. Right? And I think in this regard, women do much better than men. Why? Because when women go to the masjid, then they dress properly. They know now, top aantrek and a proper doek. Maar die mans gaan sommer wat die klere wat hulle in die straat geloop het, binne die masjid. Do you see what I'm saying? And that is why may Allah bless our elders. Remember when they come to the masjid, I trek hulle broek uit. Waarin jy hulle het almal 'n broek aan. En dan trek hulle jas aan. Why? What is the hikmah? Because they knew that, look, this is the Tahara. They were very strict about this. You can't just go in the jeans or, you know, die gesleep het in die pad. Nou gaan jy met die najis salama. If you pray with najis on your clothes, your salah is batil. One of the prerequisites of the salah. That is why also there's a Quranic verse which says, you know, Khudhu from the word akhada, zinatakum. Zinat means beautify yourselves. Right? Whenever you go to the masjid. Trek jou mooiste klere aan as jy masjid toe gaan. Don't go any, way in the masjid. So, but we'll come back to Saturn al-Awra. I don't want to go there now, right, about how to cover yourself. At this time, I'm just speaking about the tahara min al-najasa, from dirt that can be seen on the body, on the clothes, and on the place on which you pray. So I'll deal with the other 3 shurut in greater depth. The word shurut means prerequisite, and the singular is shart. Shart and shurut. Okay? I think I will stop there, and maybe I'll ask my friend Dr. Rafiq to maybe say a few words, and then we can conclude with if there are any questions that anyone might have. Rafiq, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, we thank and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, giving us this wonderful opportunity to gather here to learn something more about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to share with you a very beautiful hadith the Prophet ﷺ said, just picked up this afternoon, but I think it's so appropriate to our effort here. In this beautiful hadith reported by Hazrat Muawiyah, and it's to be found in authentic collections of Muslim and Sahih al-Bukhari, it says that the Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, مَنْ يُرِدُ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. That if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants or wills goodness for us, Allah wants to bless us with some goodness, then Allah grants us understanding of the deen, subhanallah. And I think that this be the spirit in which inshallah we are going to engage one another over the next 6-7 weeks, inshallah. Salah is something which we do every day. And I would not have become even faintly interested in this topic if that not be for Imam Rashid a good couple of months ago, I think almost a year ago. He said to me, I said, Rafiq, talk about a Jummah khutbah. And he said, what shall I talk about? It's always good, to get, into some kind of activity like this. And I wanted to talk about, it was something to do with no, it was something to do with with people not having correct knowledge about things, and I said, yeah, okay, fine, let me talk about vaccines, because so much of vaccine hesitancy. He says, no, talk about Salah, because the people don't know how to make Salah. That was the directive which he gave me. And the more I sort of, looked at this particular topic, and I got so engrossed with this topic that eventually ended up, I wrote a whole text about it, going into several pages, and I must give 2 Jummah khutbahs about it. And whatever I'm going to share with you, inshallah, over the next couple of weeks is largely going to be based, on that. And I hope, inshallah, and I will share the text with all of you, and I want feedback from all of you, so that, inshallah, all the contributions that you're going to make and the unique insight which you can bring, inshallah, we will incorporate that, and then we can, make it as a, we can publish it, from here. So, inshallah, we will. I've also got, like Imam Rashid, as well, 6 or 7 topics. I've also got 6 or 7 topics that I want to look at specifically. My topics are not fiqhy topics. You're not going to find do's and don'ts and what is going to make your salah batil and what is going to be a valid salah or not. I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to leave up to you to do, you know. But I'm going to tell you, and hopefully, inshallah, at the end of it all, why salah? Make my salah with love. I must desire to get up, you know, for tahajjud. And what are the effects? And how does Allah subhanahu, and how does the Quran, and how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the Quran, through the verses of the Quran, and various ahadith, you will find that it will spur us, it will draw us, so that, you know, you come to a state where you say that you have a taste for salah, a ladha for salah. And inshallah, that is where we want to come out. And salah then becomes a lifelong, teaching. It is not something which you're just going to learn tonight. We learned salah, many years ago in the madrasa, and we've forgotten about it. Nobody questions us about it. But we're going through difficult times. We're going through a pandemic. And our homes now, as Imam Rashid always says, are now becoming homes of worship. They're becoming, our homes have to be turned into masajid. Our homes have to be turned as places of sanctuary. And of course, you've got to have an imam there. We've got to lead our family in salah. So suddenly, the responsibility of salah on our necks is suddenly becoming, all that greater. And if it is something, which we perform so often, surely, we must get some benefit out from it. We can't just perform salah at a very basic understanding. And the more we put into salah, the more we put into learning about salah, inshallah, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open up a door of understanding in our heart and our mind. And that is where we want to get at. So I will be looking, for example, at just what is our spiritual architecture? What has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed into us? Imam Rashid has already touched on about that a little bit, when he spoke about the qalb, and I will be going a lot more deeper, into that, the qalb, the nafs, the ruh, all of that. And when we stand in salah, we bring all of that before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we talk about salah as an embodied activity. It is not just some mindful activity. You go to the internet, you'll get lots of these ideas about mindfulness and whatnot. Our salah is far beyond that. Any kind of sakina and grace and kind of peace and tranquility that it can give us is just simply enormous. It reminds me of our activists, during our struggle years, when they were in prison. And then they used to see our brothers in prison performing salah. And they used to come afterwards and say, we want to join you people, man. Because there is something so wonderful that we see in you. When you come out from that salah, we see you transform. Can't we join you? Just imagine if we can develop our salah to that particular extent. Our salah, yes, will sustain us. We are going through a crisis, not only a physical health crisis, but we're also going through a massive mental health crisis throughout. And with the pandemic, of course, these things have just become so much more worse. So, yes, we need salah for our sustenance. We need salah for the sustenance of our ruh. So I hope, inshallah, over the next couple of weeks, we'll go through every Monday night, inshallah. I'll take a little topic. I'll also endeavor to give you some notes and you can reflect on it. I will give you some resources. And again, as Imam Rashid has said, if there are resources that you know of, please bring it forth. We can all share it, and then in this way we can all be enriched, inshallah. Shukran jazilan for your time.
Shukran, Rafiq. Rafiq asked to keep it short this week, so next week you'll have to make up, inshallah. That was a bit of poor smarky. So next week, inshallah, you'll do a little bit more because you get a taste of what the khushu is, right? I told you about, I'm going to do the external, the lahir, the fiqh, right? For dummies, as Rahima would say. I don't like that word. But the fiqh will go into the batin, the inner dimensions for those of us who already know much of these things. But so I would like to end with two things before, if there are any questions. The first is that I would really, plead with you, even I'm going to do that, I'm sure Rafiq is also going to do that, to go back home and put this in practice. our next salah, when we come from this class, should be, we are looking at seeing how we can raise the level of our salah. It's a lifelong process. And sometimes you get negligent or busy, then you just make your salah, and then other times you feel I want to. So it's not the graph is not going to roll up, you're going to go up and down. But whenever that moment strikes you, right, that look, I'm in communion with Allah, then try to put everything into your salah. Right? Try to do it gracefully. Think about what am I saying to Allah when I'm doing every part of it, and ask Allah to nourish your soul so you can feel it. You feel your ruh, right? And it's amazing also that the Prophet ﷺ used to tell us the best time for that is tahajjud, or early in the mornings, right? Before the day has occupied so many of your things, right? But I don't want to go on a tangent. All I'm asking is that try to, during this next 6 weeks and even beyond, but especially now, because then we will feel that our cause has had some effect. Otherwise it's just cerebral knowledge, but it's not really transformative, right? So try to, and if you've been a little bit negligent on your salah, like all of us are, try then to make it, try in the next, try to make it on time, try to be eager with it, inshallah. And this way we can all help each other, alright, to do that. And then the final thing is that there is a little registrar, Abdurrahman, is it there? Yeah. This, please put your name and your details on here so that we can inform you about future causes. We also have another agenda. We want to, we're reviving the Dawah Ilm. We've done exceptionally well this year. We started with Imam Idris at the beginning of the year. In Ramadan we had an excellent program here. This is the third kind of course that we're running after Ramadan. So we want to revive it, and we need to have an annual general meeting. In terms of the constitution, the members of the Dawah Ilm are the students, are you. So please do help us, put your names on here, and we will, after this course, we will contact you to tell you about other courses and so on. So please do put your names on here. If anyone who hasn't done that, then Rahman will gladly bring it to you. And then finally, of course, someone has asked me to break the half of the safe return of Shireen Isop, I believe, which was hijacked earlier today. It's so sad. I mean, a family must really be in an awful state. We make dua Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring her back safely. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should protect her and give her family the sabr and the perseverance, inshallah, to come through this, inshallah. Are there any questions, any last questions that we have? If not, yes, Muhammad.
You spoke about actions.
Yes.
In Salah, and I just wanted to, I recognize the importance of actions. I just wanted to ask the question that for anybody for that matter that's not able to go down into sujood and uses a chair, and I recognize the importance of falling on the ground. How is that different? And how does that affect the khushu?
Okay.
Of these,
All right. Excellent question, Muhammad. So, again, everything in Islam is in terms of your ability. So, if your physical ability doesn't allow you to perform the postures, like you can't go on the ground, you're frail, you're old, or maybe you have some illness, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yuridullahu bikumul yusr, Allah desires ease for you. وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ, Allah does not desire difficulty for you. You should make salah in terms of your own capacity, physical capacity. And I will go through this, in miscellaneous, how does a person who's unable to perform that, but the khushu is exactly the same. You get exactly, and in fact, you will get a greater reward, right? Work for your sabr. Like, I always tell people, one of the most difficult things, right, an analogy, you're physically unable because of your illness to fast. Those people go through trauma. They want to fast, but they can't fast, right? Because it is the illness. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has said, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا, whoever is ill, أو على سفر ويترك فعدة من أيام أخرى, right? وعلى الذين يطيقونه, was unable, فدية طعام. Allah will give them a greater reward for the fidya. Every day that they can't fast, so that reward is greater. Because, it's not of their own fault. But the mindset of the person also, you can still make, even though you're not fasting, you can still make the acts of ibadah, you can still recite your... And I've seen people do much more who have that physical disability. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be with them, inshallah, through this very, very difficult component. So we'll deal with that. But the reward is, as I said, not exactly the same, even more. And the ability to achieve the khushu can be even more, because that person is really conscious of what they're doing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our salah, inshallah. Let us end with Surah Al-Asr. Again, I just remind you, we went a few minutes over time, but we try to be exact. We start at 8 o'clock. If someone comes late, unfortunately, right, we're going to start and we end at 9 o'clock. Right? Because that discipline also is very important. That's why we must make salah on the time. You can't wait 30 seconds or 1 minute after the waqt is in, is it? That's what the salah teaches us, and that's what we must implement in our lives. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون سلام على المرسلين. Please, I hope to see you next week, and if you want to bring along a family member or friend, please do welcome. They don't bring on next week.
You bring us out.
Good.